Every once in a while, the endless noise of modern life becomes overwhelming, and the only solution is to find some peace, a place to recharge the batteries and move at a slower pace. I'm Terry Davis, and along with my best mate Adrian Hardy, we love nothing more than throwing a hammock and some cooking gear into a rucksack, jumping over the proverbial back fence and heading off into the middle of nowhere for a few days. Once there, we let ourselves reconnect with our spirit of adventure and a little bit with our inner child, and experiment with build projects or wild experiments that give us a sense of having achieved something just because it seemed like a good idea at the time. So leave the wilderness of modern life behind for half an hour or so and join us. Welcome to Two Men in the Wild. Hello and welcome to another episode of Two Men in the Wild. I'm Terry.
And I'm Adrian.
And this time we've added a slightly nautical feel to proceedings because we've come north to the Lancaster Canal and hired a 44-foot narrowboat called Lily. We intend to spend our time travelling up the canal, and for this weekend this will be our escape into the wild.
The Lancaster Canal used to run all the way from Preston in the south to Kendal in the north, a distance of about 58 miles, but now because of the building of the M6 it stops at Tewitfield.
That's right, and historically the canal was used to transport coal and limestone between the north and the south, which earned it its name, the Black and White Canal.
Yeah, interesting. So I think what we'll do now is we'll get underway and we'll show you some of the scenery on our route. We'll see you in a bit.
Being on this trip this weekend with Adrian has reminded me just how much I enjoy being out on a boat on a canal. It's just a different pace of life. People are friendly. The craziness of the world can be going on all around you, but on the canal it's just calm and serene. People wave at you. I think that love comes from when I was a kid and I grew up around the outskirts of Manchester, and I was always kind of around the Bridgewater Canal. And my grandma had a house that backed onto it, and all the time there were boats going backwards and forwards and people would be waving, and I would be playing in the garden. And when I was older and a sea cadet, we had our headquarters at Worsley Dry Dock, and we spent endless hours rowing up and down in boats and canoes, watching our CO fall in the water. And then when I was really small, when I was probably 4 or 5 years old, my great-granddad used to take me for long walks through the woods and all over the place. One of the places we used to go was to Barton, to the Aqueduct. And that's quite something special. It's a place where the Manchester Ship Canal, which carries great freight vessels into the heart of Manchester, is crossed over by the Bridgewater Canal, which is a much smaller canal. And there's this giant aqueduct. It was the first, and I think still remains to be the only one in the world, which is a swing aqueduct. So what you have is you have the Manchester Ship Canal going one way, and then the Bridgewater Canal going across the top like this, on a great aqueduct. But the great thing about it is, when a large boat needs to come through, they drop a sluice at either end of the aqueduct, and the entire thing turns around. Hundreds of thousands of gallons of water turns 90 degrees to open up the waterway for the Manchester Ship Canal. And as a kid, seeing something like that, seeing all that huge piece of canal just swing round in mid-air was just magical, absolutely fantastic. And I think that's where it all started, my love of the waterways. And in a few minutes we're going to get to a place called Lune Aqueduct, which is where a great aqueduct built by John Rennie crosses over the River Lune, and there's a great valley there. So we'll show you some shots of that, and we'll have a bit of a talk about that when we get there.
So I was just thinking about what it really means to be in the wild. What do we mean by being in the wild? Well, we've said on a number of occasions that it's about getting away from the pressures of modern life, escaping into the wild, and having time to think about what's going on for you and reset your head. But for us, getting into the wild is a lot more than that. And to do it properly, you really need to have sort of three things going on. The first thing that you inevitably need is equipment. There's no point in going into the middle of a forest in just a pair of shorts and a pair of flip-flops, and then when it gets dark and cold, realising that you're cold, lost and miles away from home. It's very unlikely that's going to kill you in the UK. There are some places which are still very dangerous, but in most cases you'd be all right. You'd just be really miserable and really uncomfortable. The second thing you need, though, is a knowledge of how to use the equipment. It's no good having equipment and then getting it out and going, I have no idea how to use this fire lighter, this whatever it may be. First aid kit is a great example. You've got a first aid kit in case something goes wrong, and you have no idea to use it when you stab yourself with your knife by accident one evening. But the third thing, and the thing that makes it all make sense for us, is the difference that having the knowledge and the equipment make. Because having those two things, you have the knowledge in your head, you have a cupboard full of equipment, and it'll just stay there unless you have a purpose and a reason for going out. And for us, the purpose is as simple as, I wonder where that path goes. I wonder what it's like to navigate the canals of Lancashire on a boat. I wonder what it's like to spend a night in a forest in the rain on my own. What's the purpose of actually going out there? Because you'll find the equipment and the knowledge are great, but they're no use at all unless you've actually got some reason to go out. The reason you go in the first place, maybe because you've just had enough of life and you just want to move on and just get away just for 24 hours to recharge your head. But you'll find, if you do that, you'll end up sitting in a forest trying to work out what the hell you're doing there and just thinking about your problems. Far, far better, surely, to go and think, I'm going to practice those skills of learning to flint knap. I'm going to spend an evening drawing a tree. I'm going to practice some of my skills. I'm going to find out, as I said, where that path goes. I'm going to go and watch a man teach me how to knap flint. Whatever you do and wherever you go into the wild, just make sure you have those things. You have that purpose in your mind. You've got the tools to make yourself comfortable and safe, and you have the knowledge of how to use them. And I think any man can get out into the wild, recharge their batteries, return to modern life fully recharged and re-equipped, if you have those three basic things with you.
So as you can see, we're just coming up now to cross the Lune Aqueduct. It was originally constructed in 1797 with a planned budget of £20,000, but it overran, and because of the winter floods coming in, they had to pay men around the clock, and so the final cost was £48,000. Now it was renovated again in 2012 at a cost of £2.4 million, and it spans the River Lune 661 feet, and its total height in the middle is 61 feet high, which may not sound a lot, but just take a look at this view. This is the Atlantic Ocean. At its fiercest. Well, it's not its fiercest actually, it's just a bit tame. But it's the Atlantic Ocean still.
Putting some pressure in and then turning it when you're done. Open the valve and you'll hear it hissing. Oh, bugger, there's already a light.
Hello and welcome back.
Sorry. To Whitfield, I've got to get the name of that right as well.
Lily, and we're heading northwards. And now this episode has a slightly nautical feel to it.
And a train in the background.
Okay, and then I'll do. So now we're going to moor off. Is it moor off? Yeah. So now we're going to moor off and get underway.
We're going to set sail?
No, it's not sail, is it?
We're
We've hired a 44-foot narrowboat called Lily, and we intend to spend the time travelling up the Lancaster Canal. And for the time,
to Whitfield.
hello and welcome to Two Men in the Wild. I'm Terry.
Oh no, it's a fatal when you start getting the giggles. Right.
Oh, shit. And historically, the canal was used to transport coal and limestone between the north and the south, and it earned its name, the Black and White the Canal.
The Black and White Canal indeed. So I think what we'll do now is get on the boat and get underway. We'll see you in a little while.
I said the Black and White the Canal.
You did. Don't stop that.
We've hired a 44-foot narrowboat called Lily, and we intend to spend our time travelling northwards up towards Kendal. Why did I say that? That's not in my part of the script.
Then once that's in the fire, these two pipes then go onto the two bags